Since reusability is at the heart of the Neutron design, we asked ourselves, how could we reuse as much as possible to really drive down those costs and time to get it onto the pad and launch again and again? The answer is not throwing away the fairings or even trying to catch them. The best way is to never get rid of them in the first place.
Kenny, what'd you think of the Neutron update?
I think Neutron's going to pretty much dominate the space industry. I think not only are they making good on their word, it's one of those interesting things. And, let's just compare this to Elon, because I think that's what we're going to do, right? Like, Elon says they're going to have the Cybertruck. 10 years later, we're still waiting on orders, right? I'm not trying to talk smack about the guy because he's a genius and he's doing really great things for humanity as a whole, but I'm just saying he's definitely an over-promise and try to get it done type of guy, where I think Neutron, and especially this rocket, I mean, if you're looking at it here, man, I just love what I see, especially as an investor, as somebody who has a stake in the company. I like it. What do you think?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because we are going to be doing a whole lot of comparing to SpaceX, and especially the Falcon 9. And what I'm taking away from this presentation is that Neutron is superior to the Falcon 9 in every way. And I did sort of have a theory that this was going to be the case, simply because Rocket Lab is a far more experienced company than SpaceX was when they built the Falcon 9. And also Rocket Lab has been able to learn from all the mistakes made during the Falcon 9 process and apply them to their own design. And that's exactly what we're seeing. There are plenty of examples with this. So let's get straight into it. First of all, the structure. Okay, Falcon 9 is just a long, skinny rocket, simply because that's how wide they could possibly make it so that it could still be transported by rail. However, Neutron doesn't have that constraint, because they're not going to be landing it on a barge. They're going to be landing it back right on the launch pad. It doesn't need to go anywhere, so they can make it as wide as possible. This is going to allow them to do several things. One, the base is so much wider, meaning it's going to have so much more surface area when re-entering, that it's not going to go through the same thermodynamic stresses that the Falcon 9 has to go through, so that's going to make it a lot easier to reuse. Additionally, it has a 5-meter fairing, so one of the main complaints about the Falcon 9 is that it has just this tiny little fairing that can barely carry anything, especially the Falcon Heavy, and the US government, I think it's Space Force, actually forced Elon Musk to spend money developing a bigger fairing, and he was pretty pissed about it. But yeah, the Falcon 9, it can lift a whole lot, but it can't really carry much in terms of volume, and Neutron completely solves this problem by being a much wider rocket and having a bigger fairing. So the next thing to talk about is the engine, and I was actually really impressed with their design choice. I know a lot of people were expecting some really fancy full flow stage combustion cycle, hyper advanced engine, kind of like SpaceX's Raptor engine, but they went for a simple gas generator just like the Merlin that's on the Falcon 9. And this is an extremely good design choice for a reusable rocket, just because it's simple, okay? It doesn't have to be the most efficient, most advanced, most sophisticated engine. It just has to be easy to refurbish and reuse, and it has to be reliable, and that's exactly the design choice they went for. Another thing about their Archimedes engine is that it's capable of producing a meganewton of thrust, which is way more than they need it to produce. That means they're able to run it at less than full power the entire time the Neutron is flying, so that it's not going through the same high levels of stress that other rocket engines are going through during launch. And that's going to make this engine significantly easier to use, because if you're reusing a rocket dozens or hundreds of times, it's a marathon, not a sprint, okay? All these other engines, they're designed to run the sprint and then just be done, to be pushed to their absolute limits. But Neutron is being built with the express purpose of being reused many, many times, so it can't be pushing itself to 100% capacity every time it gets off the pad.
And Nathan, you know what reusability equals, right, in the investment world? Equals higher gross profit margins.
Much higher gross profit margins, significantly. And the thing is, Neutron could end up producing a much lower cost than Falcon 9, and that's another thing about Neutron. It is actually more adequately sized than the SpaceX Falcon 9. It's built to take 8 tons to low Earth orbit in its fully reusable mode. Falcon 9's more like 20, 22, something around there. But there are very few payloads greater than 8 tons and less than 22 tons. They intentionally made that design choice because that's just a lot of extra performance that's just going to waste every single Falcon 9 launch. But Neutron, they're going to be using less fuel, taking just about 99% of the same payloads, and they're going to be able to do it for cheaper.
So I get the 20 tons thing, but like, if you were going to explain to a dummy, like, how many Dwayne "The Rock" Johnsons can we get in here? Like, best guess.
I think it's like 32. I think we can get 32 Dwayne "The Rock" Johnsons into orbit
Okay.
with the Neutron rocket. I'm pretty sure that's roughly what the math turns out to. This news about the Archimedes engine being extremely simple and not operating at full power and being easy to refurbish is actually a very timely piece of news, because you know that SpaceX has been developing the most advanced rocket engine ever, the Raptor, to go on their Starship vehicle, but Elon recently came out with a bombshell email to SpaceX employees, and then it leaked to the public, that Raptor production is far behind schedule and it's actually risking the company going bankrupt if they go at this rate. So Elon is actually considering replacing his most efficient Raptor engine with something less efficient but easier to manufacture, and Rocket Lab has made that decision from day one. So they are learning from SpaceX's mistakes faster than SpaceX is learning from SpaceX's mistakes, because they're starting from scratch and have a fresh, clean slate to work from.
No, it's just amazing. It's really amazing. I was really interested when I saw that the article, though. I don't know why Elon thinks that none of this stuff is going to escape his ecosystem. Like, unless he's in some kind of secret SCIF, secure facility, like 0% chance that an email like that doesn't get leaked out, right? So, I mean, I feel like he must have known, and I feel like there might be a play here, is what I'm thinking. But at the same time, no, I do get it, and I'm really absolutely very, very optimistic that Rocket Labs leans into these lessons learned and takes it from wherever they can find it. I like it.
Yeah, one interesting thing about that, this could be a play, and in the most recent episode, I think, of The Angry Astronaut, he does speculate on what if this is just a ploy by Elon Musk, and he actually argues, this is a very fascinating point, so I'm going to bring it up, that might even be a worse indicator, because Elon takes after Howard Hughes quite a bit. Howard Hughes, the genius who originally built the first spacecraft, unmanned spacecraft, to land on the moon, but eventually in his later years he became extremely paranoid, started going crazy, started driving his workers crazy, and just devolved into madness. And if we're seeing Elon take that same exact paranoid route, this could be a pretty bad indicator for SpaceX overall. And on the note of SpaceX potentially going bankrupt, we will have to do a video exploring that hypothetical in the future. Back to the fairing, seeing that thing sort of open up, kind of like a James Bond supervillain type rocket, or almost the creature off of Stranger Things, was definitely an interesting choice. Also learned from SpaceX's mistakes. SpaceX had a failed program where they tried to catch their fairings as they came back and re-entered with boats, with massive nets on them, and then they gave up on that, and then they just tried fishing them out of the ocean. That also failed, so they eventually abandoned that program. It was just a logistical nightmare, and Neutron is completely circumventing that problem by just keeping the fairing attached. Another example of how Neutron is simply an improvement upon Falcon 9 in all of these little ways that are going to make it a better vehicle.
Yeah, I think that's something that you can't overlook, and especially when it comes to like investor and kind of, obviously they're already a public company, so you're not looking for an extra series or a round of funding or anything like that. But, investors are going to be really optimistic about this, because there's a lot of folks like myself who aren't completely hooked on the space thing, and we're not watching it 100% of the time. But like when we see a rocket go up and the fairing kind of like opens up and does this magical thing and then stays intact, that's a big deal. It's things that we haven't seen before, and like I don't think you can discount that.
Neutron is going for carbon composites, which is something Rocket Lab is pretty well known for. A lot of the other companies in the space industry right now are trending towards, stainless steel, this sort of cheap, highly resistant, but again, cost-effective material. And, a lot of people might be questioning exactly why Rocket Lab is sticking with this more expensive, higher performing, but still more expensive material. And the thing is, cost of the material you build your rocket out of doesn't exactly matter if you're going to be reusing it, dozens and eventually hundreds of times. You want that rocket to be still in ship shape on the 99th launch same as the first launch, and that's where you absolutely do justify the cost of building it out of carbon composites.
Plus, it looks cool.
Plus, it looks cool. You
Yeah.
can't discount that. You can't discount that.
Especially for space. You gotta like really get to folks' imagination. So, anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
The last thing I do want to say is that this announcement actually does put a lot of pressure on SpaceX. A lot of, yeah, for the longest time, SpaceX has sort of been this untouchable entity. And that might not last forever, because if Neutron's launching in 2024 and it's better than Falcon 9 in all these ways, Falcon 9 could be obsolete by 2026. And if Starship isn't ready by then to take up the mantle, SpaceX loses its monopoly. It loses the ability to operate on all the extremely ridiculously high margins that it's been working on, investing heavily into Starlink and building a fully reusable launch vehicle powered by full flow stage combustion engines. Those are ridiculous endeavors that you would never be able to do unless you were the industry leader by at least a decade. But they're no longer the industry leader by a decade, and they might lose that lead or suddenly be vying for that lead, trying to maintain it in as little as 5 years.
You know what else is really cool about the 2024 kind of launch window? It's really, I mean, obviously they thought this through, but I mean, because of that kind of time duration, how far it is out, it's absolutely being modeled into the cash flows and also into the kind of valuations of the company. So obviously they've thought of it. And so because it's just right on the edge of where folks can model for it, I think that's going to definitely drive the kind of stock price up, whether they get to it or not. But as long as they start to perform and they start to kind of move towards that, I think people will give them credit for it. Yeah, like SpaceX definitely has a lot of contracts with the military, and if they don't have these contracts, they're definitely kind of nested well within kind of that space. And so they do have a big kind of foreboding presence in the DoD, especially in America, and obviously that's a ton of contract money. But if true, and if like they start to lose this edge, there's definitely a kind of policy letter or kind of directive to kind of not only just spread the money out within these private companies, but to redirect money to the most efficient and cost-effective companies. So I mean, I think this is the right kind of path. And if Rocket Labs unseats SpaceX, not just in our hearts and our minds, but in our wallets, then that's a big deal. And I think writing will be on the wall at that point. And that's when indeed, as investors, and I don't want to come back to investors too much because I do believe in just the space theme and humanity getting off this planet and surviving whatever it is, what I mean? Pick your poison or whatever, pick your meteor. But you get my point, just like this is it, like this could be it. And if it does happen, that's going to be a massive move for the stock price.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see exactly when it is Rocket Lab gets credit for all the work they're doing, and if they are able to actually unseat SpaceX. And the only thing I can say for certain is that we are not there yet. We're still very early. It is not too late to keep buying tranches of this company, for sure, because they've got a ways to go. They've got all the runway they need. Again, they're more experienced than SpaceX was when they were developing the Falcon 9 and completely uprooted the industry. So I think Neutron has the potential to uproot the industry, especially with all the delays coming to Starship. We might not see Starship before Neutron comes out. We might not even see New Glenn before Neutron comes out. These are all possibilities just because those two colossal companies have experienced delays where Rocket Lab does have a very good track record of keeping to their word.
Yeah, one thing I'd add to that too is like, in the semiconductor space, it's always a leapfrog kind of moment. Like AMD takes the lead, then Intel takes the lead, then AMD takes the lead, and then we're down to 3 nanometers and 2 and 1. Well, in the space industry, actually, it's kind of a little bit different. So you get credit for the things that you try, number one, because it's such an innovative and hyper growth space. But I think the second point is too, though, that these roadmaps or IPRs, in progress reviews, so this would be considered one, and I think this is successful, right? So the next one, we get to check on them probably next year. And so leading up to 24, we probably have 2 more catalysts coming up that could definitely take the stock price up. And obviously you'll see natural growth from here too, as long as we have a healthy market. So, I mean, with all those things coming up and in such a hyper growth, such an early, ill-defined market, I think we're just ripe for just loading the boat, as the kids say it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of a few of those catalysts, we're going to see next year the first Electron get caught mid-air with a helicopter and not be brought to a boat, be brought all the way back to the launch pad because they were able to give the helicopter extended fuel tanks. We're going to see an Electron get caught and reflown. That's going to be a massive catalyst, okay? First company to reuse a rocket besides SpaceX. And then we're also going to get a catalyst whenever it is that they announce their human-rated capsule because they showed us the upper stage. They didn't show us something that can carry humans, and we know that Neutron is being expressly designed to be able to take humans into low Earth orbit. So we're going to be able to see that as well, and that's going to be another really big catalyst, probably another great show from Peter Beck that we'll all get to tune into.
I just want to know how many hats he can eat. Like, when does he run out of hats? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think he runs out of hats. I think they just print them in in the factory along with the Rutherford engines.
Fiber?
Yeah. Carbon fiber hats.
Yes, yeah.
Peter Beck.
I'll take one.
Improve your cash flow. Print carbon fiber hats. We will buy them.
Yeah, send us one and we'll wear it for sure.
Absolutely. So I think we covered everything that we saw in this presentation. Again, extremely impressed. They really are pushing the boundaries. You know, a lot of people thought, you know, especially when we saw that original little PNG of Neutron, we thought, oh, this is just going to be a Falcon 9 clone. It's not. You know, despite everyone else in the space industry trying to just catch up to what SpaceX is doing, Neutron is really pushing the boundaries and doing something that SpaceX has not been able to do, doing many things SpaceX has not been able to do, and kind of sort of taking them to school with all these design choices in Neutron. So it's going to be really exciting to see. Can't wait till 2024 when we get to see this thing fly for the first time. It's going to be amazing.
I only have 2 words to say: overweight, outperform.
Overweight, outperform. I gotta buy more. We didn't see a big stock jump yet, so it's not too late to buy. I'm gonna maybe sell a few other companies to buy more Rocket Lab. I'm underweight. I'm tragically underweight. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you guys in the next video. It's probably going to be Rocket Lab versus Astra, actually. You know, long awaited. But it's going to be really exciting. You know, writing the script for it now, it's going to be a great video. All right. Also, follow the Twitter. It's going to be in the description. Things happen in the space industry really, really fast. I can't always just come out here and get a short out, get a video out. I don't always have my microphone or camera with me, but I can put out a tweet. If you want to stay up to date on everything investing in the space industry related, follow the Twitter. Follow Twitter. All right. See you guys.